Today we have Brandy Williams,
Hey.
who is the host of
Cartoon Craze.
Cartoon Craze, which is another podcast here on Woo Radio. You should check that out. And we also have our very special guest, animators Kathy Zielinski. Right there. There she is. She's right there. Okay. So Brandon told me not to move this mic around too much, so I'm being very delicate with it. So we're going to have to play mic where I'll move it over to talk and talk. Hi, Kathy.
Hello.
There she is. Okay. And you can hear yourself, and we'll turn off the TV because that is distracting.
Okay.
But okay. So Kathy is animated on many Disney and Dreamworks films. Animated features, and now she's working at The Simpsons. And so anyway, thanks, Kathy, for coming on, and great interview. And no, wait, we have to go into that now.
That was easy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for coming to Woodbury and doing this interview. I really appreciate this.
My pleasure.
You heard that we had Bob Kurtz on last week?
Yes.
And,
Yeah, great Bob Kurtz.
Yeah, that was great. So he came on and talked and everything. And so I just want to ask you, back when you were a kid, how or when did you first discover animation?
Well, of course, there weren't videotapes back then, and I remember my parents would take us to the movies, and I remember loving a lot of the Disney movies, and I remember being in a drive-in theater seeing Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland and many other feature films, and I just fell in love with the Disney films, and I used to, as a kid, just draw those characters all the time. So that's sort of kind of where I found it. And of course, being from LA, going to Disneyland all the time, got to see a lot of the characters there as well.
Okay, and I also noticed that you've done a lot of sculpting in clay. Did you do that back when you were a kid, or just later?
Yeah, I mean, I had some ceramic classes in high school and middle school, but I guess you could say I really got into sculpting once I got to Cal Arts, where I went to the animation program there, and that's where I really started blossomed in terms of just really my interest in sculpting. And for me, sculpting is a great way to really get a good feel for the characters and their dimensions. So that's kind of why I would, do a lot of sculptures of the characters I worked on.
Okay. And you said you attended Cal Arts, and when you were there, you made a bunch of animated films, and one of them is called Look Who's for Dinner, which did it win a Focus Film Award?
Yes, it was called Guess Who's for Dinner.
Oh, Guess
and
Who.
Yeah, and it won a Focus Film Award and a Student Academy Award in, I guess the year was 1981 or 1982. And the Focus Film Award, I actually won second place in that. David Silverman, who is one of our producers and directors on The Simpsons, he won first place, and he got the car. And I won second place, and I got like $2,000, which is great. And then for the Student Academy Award, I won for the Best Animated Short, and T. He, the great T. He, was the one who gave me the award and announced my name, and that was extremely special because I had him as a teacher at Cal Arts.
So some of our listeners are a little young, so they don't know who a T. He was. Can you tell us a little bit who that was?
Sure. T. He was a great caricaturist and a director for Disney and UPA films. And at Disney, he directed The Reluctant Dragon. Oh. He was just an amazing character design artist, and he was just really inspirational for me as a student when I first started in animation.
So I actually posted on my blog called Animateducated. If you go to animatededucated.blogspot.com, you can actually see your Kathy Zielinski interview there The blog also has a bunch of your films that you worked on, clips from your films. It has sculptures that you've done for various films. And let's see, the first film that you, after you got out of Cal Arts, you actually went to train at Disney, right?
Yes, I was really fortunate. Eric Larson, one of the 9 old men, was still working at Disney, and he was training new animators that would come in. And so I was very fortunate with another group of people that were also from Cal Arts and other places. And I got to spend, I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks with Eric. I see a picture of me standing next to a moviola with Eric Larson, Matt O'Callahan, and Bill Frake. And Matt O'Callahan was actually in my year at Cal Arts. And yeah, that's a pretty neat picture actually, because when I first started at Disney, they had the moviola still. So you would animate your scene, and they would send it out for to be processed. And they would make a loop of your shot, and so you'd watch it over and over on that device there, the moviola, and so. Yeah, and I think this was actually taken our very first day at Disney. It was kind of interesting. They had brought in a big group of us, and Disney at that time was kind of wanted to do a lot of publicity of like, here's a new generation of animators, although there had been other new generations before me, working on Fox and the Hound and other pictures. But anyway, there was a big group of us, and so they went around and did a lot of publicity photos. They actually photographed us walking around the back lot, and so that is actually kind of a publicity photo right there. So that's really neat, to see that picture.
Your first film, I think, was Mickey's Christmas Carol. Was that right?
Yeah, that was the first character animated film. Actually, the very first thing I did for Disney was Pixie Dust for, I think it was an Exxon ride at Epcot. Epcot hadn't even opened yet, so I'm really dating myself. But yeah, Pixie Dust is the very, very first thing I did. But really, the first thing, character-wise, I animated was Mickey's Christmas Carol.
And then you worked on the Black Cauldron.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually worked on The Witches.
Oh, okay.
And my claim to fame is the scene where one of the characters, I think it's Flute or Flam, or another character, gets turned into a frog, and he gets stuck in the witch's cleavage. So anyway, it's always a funny story to tell about that, and especially it was really funny just being directed how to animate that. So Ted Berman was one of the 3 directors working on that film. And yeah, he, I guess he had worked with female animators before, but that was a particularly odd scene. And he was describing the scene to me saying, okay, Kathy, so you're going to have this frog in the jugs. As the jugs are moving around, I'm like, jugs? What are jugs? Oh my God. So that was pretty funny. But I mean, I did a lot more scenes than that, but that one's always funny to think about, how silly it is. So, yeah.
This is when you were out on Flower Street in like a portable building.
Yeah, that's
they kind of shoved everybody out there.
Yeah, we got kicked off the lot.
You got kicked off the lot. And one of the characters that you had some like art show that this character was in.
Okay.
And
yeah, that's from a personal film, a puppet film that I was doing back then, and I still can continue to work on it. It's in the computer now. I rebuilt a lot of the objects and sets and everything, but I originally started shooting this. Actually, I was still at Cal Arts, or no, I wasn't at Cal Arts, but I had friends at Cal Arts. Brad Ewan, was a friend of mine. He was still there, and he got me access to shoot some of the sets on one of their stages. And I actually borrowed equipment from Disney. Ed Hansen was nice enough to make connection for me, and so I was able to borrow some equipment, lighting equipment, and cameras I rented. Anyway, so that is a puppet film, kind of a toys nightmare, and this is before Toy Story, and it'll be way after Toy Story 10 is done. I finally finished this thing. But yeah, she's the villain, and she's, you don't really see her till the end of the film, but she's the one who's been chasing this cutesy little creature that is running around in this dark house, and you don't know what he's running from. So basically, once I was done, I was not able to shoot at CalArts anymore. I decided, well, let me rebuild some of these in miniature form, the sets in miniature form, because actually I started building the sets, like 40-foot sets I built. They were really huge. So I had to build something that could be shot in a smaller place. And so I was shooting a lot of stuff in my apartment. So that interview was done in my apartment.
Okay.
And so I had this huge 4x8 set in my living room of my apartment, and it's how I met my husband, Kevin Kuchaver, who helped me shoot a lot of it.
Going back to your project, there's actually a link online to, I'll send it to Jim, but there is a link of her work for hide and seek. I was really curious, so I was like, I really love the designs.
Oh, thank you.
So they are gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that shows like the whole history of me working on that film. You could see the larger sets. And actually, I should mention, so how that film got started is I really have always been into Halloween costumes, and I had made this huge kind of funny creature where you would sit on a chair and your legs were the creature's legs and your arms were the creature's arms. And it was, you'd roll the chair and then you could open the mouth by moving the arms up. Anyhow, I don't have it would be better if I had a picture to show that, but that got me started thinking, oh, I want to make a film. And the person who had helped me puppeteer that film was Mark Dindal, so a famous director.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was doing it when it was was on the bigger sets. But anyways, when it went to miniature, then didn't need him to help out on that part. But yeah, a little bit of history. So if you looked at those pictures, you'll see like a history of shooting various parts of it.
So after Black Cauldron, you worked on the fidget character from The Great Mouse Detective, and then after that was '86, and then you worked on Oliver and Company. Who did you have a character?
Yeah,
for that?
so Oliver and Company, I did Georgette the poodle, and my recollection, I did the opening where she first wakes up and she looks in the mirror with the curlers in her hair, and then she walks down the stage, and she might say the first line or two of the song, but that whole intro was mine.
Oh, okay.
And I did other characters, I did Fagin and Dodger, but mostly Georgette was what I focused on.
I'm putting up this right now. This is you worked, like I said, after that you worked on Little Mermaid, and you were on the Ursula crew.
Yeah.
And there you are, right in the middle there with the
shell.
The shell around your neck.
Next to Ruben Aquino, who was the supervising animator on that.
Right. Okay, and that's when I came to LA for the awards thing, and that's when I went and actually saw you working on that scene. You were actually working on a scene where it was the one where the guy was the French.
Yeah, Chef Louis.
Yeah, when he was running towards the camera with the thing.
With the cleaver.
Yeah, and I was watching that and going, wow, look at that. She's drawing it. I'm like watching history right here. So.
Yeah, that was really fun. Matt O'Callahan had animated most of the song, and I picked up where the song kind of ended and the chase scene begins. So I animated that whole end section of Chef Louis trying to kill Sebastian with the meat cleaver and knives and all sorts of sharp objects. And that was super fun, fun. Again, me and cleavers and knives is kind of fun to, stuff.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah, I'm animating something in that vein Simpsons right now, which I can't really talk about because it's going to be aired later this year. And but kind of reminds me of that sequence that I did in Little Mermaid.
Okay, and so after that, you actually got to work on well, you did like one of the character Frank, the lizard from
Frilled-neck lizard, yeah.
yeah, from Rescuers Down Under. I think I have a picture of him somewhere. If you want to talk about him, I'll put the picture up.
Sure. Yeah, so on Rescuers Down Under, I got the chance to animate Frank the Frilled-neck lizard. And actually, I did sculptures of Joanna and Frank, and I don't think I gave you a picture of Frank.
Yeah.
But this is actually a sculpture of Joanna that I did. And I did animate scenes of her as well. But my main focus was Frank the Frilled-neck lizard. But she was a lot of fun to do as well. And Frank, he had that crazy, frantic voice, and it was neat to study that type of lizard.
They run on water, right?
They probably can, yeah. Or
he has a
there's basically their frill goes out, and probably to make them look like a large predator, I imagine. And then they run on two legs. So I did a lot of study of how those lizards move around, and monitor lizards as well. Actually, funny story, we had a monitor lizard. Disney bought us a monitor lizard for that production, and Dave Cutler was the supervisor of Joanna, and we were roommates, and we had the lizard in our room, and we named it Jaja. And kind of funny because, we kept calling it Jaja, and we would feed Jaja, and one day we discovered, Jaja's not a girl, Jaja's a boy. Oh. So I'll just leave it at that. And we were like, what's going on? It's Jaja, she's not a girl. And we could never figure out a different name for her. So he ended up still being called Jaja. But so that was kind of neat to be able to have a real lizard in our room to do study from.
Oh, that's great. I just put up, this is Hexus, I guess?
Yes.
And he was in, when you're working on that, you actually got to work on The Last Rainforest, Fern Gully. Mm-hmm. And one of our instructors here, Sue Croyer, and her husband, Bill, that they actually made the film, or he directed it, and she did everything else, I think. But you worked on this character.
Yes. So what happened is I had left Disney to work on my short Hide and Seek, which we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And Sue found out that I had left Disney and asked if I would do some work on their villain. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And so I kind of worked on both projects at the same time. And this was just a dream come true, because getting to design such an awesome villain, and interesting too, because he's half effects, half character. And I really like effects, and I love drawing effects. So this was just a real fun thing to think of, a villain that's pollution oriented and fire and oil and things like that. And he gets trapped in a tree by the end of the film, and it was enormously satisfying. It's one of my favorite villains I've ever done. And thanks Bill and Sue, for trusting me with such an amazing character. And Tim Curry was the voice of it. I got to meet Tim Curry.
Oh, wow.
And, I watched a lot of his films and tried to capture the flavor of Tim Curry and the designs. And, really amazing. And it was really neat to work with the effects guys, too, because I think a couple pictures ago that you had posted showed one of my rough drawings. And that, what I did is I did the animation and then I would draw some keys. Yeah, so that drawing shows one of the key indications that I did to just give the effects guys and ladies an idea of what I'd kind of wanted to see, bubbly oil on his shoulder, and how the oil also drips down with holes in the fire through his torso. So just to give them an indication, and then they, of course, took it a step further, and then they worked their effects magic on it and did such a wonderful job on him.
Yeah, that was kind of a film. I remember I really liked it, and it seems like it's pretty timeless now. I mean, you could watch that now and still get a lot out of it. And I wish more people would see that film, actually.
Yeah, with
because
the whole global warming.
yeah, well,
that's
all science fiction. You know that. It's all that Star Trek and stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's relevant today, that's for sure. And we just had a 25th reunion at the Croyers' house for Fern Gully, and there were some amazing artists that worked on that. Tony Fuccelli, Ralph Eggleston, who's just a wonderful guy and an incredible art director, and he's like one of Pixar's #1 guys up there. And Tony is too. Tony's pretty amazing. But Dan Jube was another amazing artist that worked on that film. And so I feel really lucky to have been a part of it.
Okay, wow. Yeah, and then after that, as this is going on, or thereabouts, you actually worked on the snake character. Well, in Aladdin, Jafar. Let me see if I can find him. Oh, I don't have it in here. I have him. I'll put him in here. But if you want to talk about that, I'll put up some images of Jafar.
Okay, so Aladdin, another wonderful film. Feel so lucky to have gotten a chance to work on that. John and Ron were nice enough to give me the Baker character to design, so I designed him, and also the Jafar as a snake and Jafar as the genie. So I focused on those 3 versions of Jafar on the film, and what you're seeing there is one of the actual real drawings that I did that was mid-transformation of Jafar changing from his normal state into the snake. And I love transformations. I've gotten a chance to do several. Jafar into the snake, snake into the genie, Hexus, there's some transformation with him. And actually, going back to Little Mermaid, I got a chance to animate the transformation from Vanessa into Ursula, and I just love that scene where the octopus tentacles are bursting through her wedding dress.
That was awesome.
Yeah, but anyway, getting back to this film, those are my designs, and I had originally designed a skull on the back of the hood of the Cobra, but it's there's only so much time that can be spent doing these drawings, and that would have been a difficult task for cleanup to do the skull that was on the back, so we took that off. But pretty much that's my design there, and that was a lot of fun to do as well, and Jafar Genie at the end was great to animate. But the Beggar, I really loved him, and there's that one scene that I animated where Jafar's mouth the Beggar's mouth gets really wide, and drool comes pouring out of his mouth. I think there's a picture that you had of me at an animation desk, and actually that drawing is on my desk. It's that one right there. Yeah, that scene I did of the Beggar. That was one of the super fun ones, and it's funny because when I went to Dreamworks after Hunchback of Notre Dame, and their characters were a lot more realistic, and I looked back, a few years after working at Dreamworks at this film, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how exaggerated that is. And I mean, I just love doing exaggerated animation, and so I was really lucky to have gotten to work on that character.
All right, let me just pop this up here. Also, I have to say, my wife said, now make sure you tell her that I thought Little Mermaid was the best animated film ever.
Oh.
And we actually saw it. She's not really that's kind of where we met, is at Columbia in Chicago. and I would always take her to the animation stuff because
Oh.
she was like, "Oh, this is a great film. I like this. It's an evil character.
Yeah.
Ursula's like the evilest character ever."
Yeah.
And anyway, I just had to say that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, it was funny. I just saw the film the other day, El Capitan in Hollywood. They were running The Little Mermaid film for, I guess, about 5 days or something. And a few people, Dave Woodman and some others, Lee Crow, I think, Kent Cullotta, they organized a little mini reunion of The Little Mermaid, and some of the artists showed up, and John Musker showed up, and we watched the film, took lots of pictures at the El Capitan, went over to the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel and had some drinks, and lots of fun. But yeah, that is, she is such a great character.
Yeah, here she is right here.
Yeah.
So she's this is one of your sculptures, isn't it?
Yeah, so I did the sculpture working on the film, and I wasn't told to do that. I just did it because, again, it's just another way to help me learn how to draw the characters better and really understand their forms. So yeah, I've had that, since Little Mermaid. And actually, a neat story is that the Academy Museum is opening up, I think, later this year in December, and she will be on display at the museum along with, the sculpture here is going to be on display at the museum along with 3 other of my sculptures that I did. So I'm really excited and, really flattered that they would like some of my work. But that sculpture will be in the museum for like 5 years or something like that.
Wow.
Up to 5 years.
That's great. So you worked on Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Which you have. I noticed you have your
Oh,
coat.
yes, I had
right
my
behind us.
Hunchback. Whenever it gets cold in LA, that's my go-to jacket. It's my favorite jacket.
Yeah.
So I love the movie and I love the jacket.
So here's another sculpt you did of him.
Yeah, so again, just one of my favorite characters. I've been very fortunate in my career, especially early days at Disney, to have gotten to do some really cool characters. But yeah, this is Frollo. This is when I was sort of nailing the design. I did a sculpture of him, and Kent Milton, a really fabulous sculptor, he did one as well of him standing. So I did the bust, and he did the standing one. If you ever come across that other sculpture, and he was sort of inspired by Hans Conried. I had done a lot of different designs, just trying out all sorts of different things, and then I sort of honed in on his look and put a little bit of him into that, watching 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and Frollo, man, I fell in love with that character because he's so badass. He is just, and he's, I don't know, what can I say, that song Hellfire. When I saw the boards from Paul and Gaëtan Brizzi, who were amazing French directors and animators, storyboard artists, they do it all probably. And they had storyboarded out the whole sequence of Hellfire, and I was just shivering, seeing the emotion they put into those storyboards. And I was really lucky that, getting a chance to be a supervisor. Thank you, Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, for believing in me to do that character. And I animated probably about 98% of Hellfire for Frollo, not the other characters, but it's just gives me chills even thinking about it today. But yeah, I got to do so many cool scenes with him. I mean, I did that scene of him sniffing Esmeralda's hair in another sequence, and him watching her dancing at the Festival of Fools. It's it's neat. I'm really feel lucky. I don't think Disney particularly likes that character because I very rarely see him on any merchandising. But at least I've got my maquette.
Yeah. You also have this photo here. I have to put it up because I guess I know you like.
Ah, yeah. So,
You
yeah, there I am in my Frollo costume. My assistant, cleanup assistant, June Fujimoto, who is really good at sewing, uh, she made that costume. And we wanted to just try to make him as believable as possible, do as best of a job as possible, and having the costume was really helpful because you could. I quite often actually animated in that silly costume with the door closed. But yeah, somebody came in and took some pictures of me. But a lot of times I'd be in that costume and I'd be looking in the mirror and seeing how the drapery would fall.
Right.
And we did actually hire an actor to shoot some live action reference as well, and he wore the costume. And so we could really get a sense of how that drapery moved, and that moved so differently from the scarf, which was a silky scarf on that hat. I have a funny story to tell you about that hat. It's I designed that hat, and it's a very difficult shape to draw, and you have the stripes going all around the hat, and then you got the scarf, the silky scarf. So it's a lot of work to do that hat. And the crew, by the end of that film, they were just sick and tired of that stupid hat. And I'm like, yeah, who designed that damn hat? Oh, shit, it was me. But I could feel their pain. I know. And so I approached Gary and Kirk and I said, hey, we got that sequence where Frollo's running around at the end of the film. What if his hat just falls off as he's running and then we never see it again? And they're like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So that way we didn't have to draw the hat anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just a funny little story behind the story behind the hat.
Story behind the hat.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Also, so after that, you kind of was that like your last film you worked on at Disney, and then.
That was my last hand-drawn film that I did at Disney. Yeah, and then after that, I went to DreamWorks for 17 years, doing various. I worked on all their 2D films and then quite a few of their 3D films as well. And I was very lucky to get trained in 3D at DreamWorks. I think it was around 2001. Going back, this is, again, still doing sculptures. This was kind of like just trying to find Sekko Khan. I was a supervisor of Sekko Khan on El Dorado. And yeah, so this is just one of many sculptures I did. I think I did about 4 or 5 of them. And that was really fun. Very crazy shapes.
Right.
To sculpt.
Okay, and then, gosh, you did a lot for DreamWorks. Yeah. I mean, you did the Road to El Dorado with that character, and then you worked on Spirit.
Yeah, got to work on Spirit, and that was really challenging. Drawing horses, very difficult. And basically, kind of some of the stuff I did in that was where Spirit falls in love with I can't remember the female horse's name.
Marina.
No. That's from Sinbad.
Oh, Sinbad. Spirit. I don't have that name.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that was kind of fun to do. Difficult and challenging, but kind of neat to draw horses. I did a lot of study of horses, and yeah, worked on, like I said, all their 2D films, drawing various characters.
Okay, and then run out of things here. Okay, and so, and you also worked on Shark's Tale. How was that?
Oh, Shark's Tale, yeah. So that was my first CG film that I did. So after the training program, a lot of us were actually new to CG because at that time there weren't very many CG artists. And so I feel very fortunate that I was able to get trained in doing CG. And so animated lots of fun scenes of Oscar. And that was done in Maya. And Dreamworks later decided to use the PDI software Emo to animate with. But that film was done in Maya. And it was tricky because it wasn't just the animators were new. The riggers, they weren't really new to it, but there wasn't like they didn't have their whole pipeline worked out. And so each character was rigged differently. There wasn't a uniformed way so each character you had to kind of learn, how did this rigger animate this character? But being that we were new to it, it was like, whatever, that button moves this. But yeah, Oscar was crazy. He had like over 3,000 controls, and they tried to do everything on one rig. So they had him he had a switch where you could change him to a swimmable fish shape versus walking on two legs like a human. So, that had its problems. And then early on in the film, I guess Jeffrey decided he wanted to have a lot of the rigs changed where the eyes would be bigger. And so that broke a lot of our animation early on. We had to redo a lot of animation because of that. But yeah, I think the film did really well for DreamWorks. And being their first one that they did. They had other films because they had PDI doing films, but their first in-house in Glendale, did pretty well for them.
And then not just animating, but you also did character development it says you did. I don't know. I'll ask you exactly to tell. You worked on Madagascar and Over the Hedge and Flushed Away.
Yeah.
Did you?
So, well, in terms of development, on Madagascar, I feel really lucky to have worked on that. They were doing the work up north at the PDI facility, and I was asked to do drawings of the characters. Oh.
No, it's me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know sorry.
I'm blocking you.
So I was asked to do drawings of the characters in like different mouth shapes, character poses to get, showing how the stripes or spots or whatever would fit on the character to give the riggers and modelers an idea of how extreme these characters could be. So that was really fun to just I was the only 2D person, doing that particular job, getting to work with the riggers. And I did not design the characters, but taking another person's designs and moving them around.
Right.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not credited for that, but yeah, taking the other person's character designs and moving them around, and that was fantastic to work on that. And the other films, Over the Hedge was probably my favorite CG animated film I worked on over there.
Did you work on, is that the one you did the squirrel, or did you do other things?
Yeah, Hammy the Crazy Squirrel.
Hammy is great.
Oh, he was so much fun because you were trying to get kind of a Warner Brothers zippy look to it. And so you had to, you didn't want to be looking always really smooth. He could just like dart out in like a frame. And the controls were really good on that film, so you could really do a lot of good squash and stretch on those characters. But he was definitely my favorite that I did. And and all the characters were pretty fun. I did a lot of the dog that was chasing the characters around.
Is that the one where he says play?
Play. Yeah,
Play,
I did those
play.
scenes. Play. Yeah, I did those scenes, and some of the skunk where she's, seeing how, she does look pretty.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Hammy is what I did the most of.
I love that film because it's like they give him something that he goes not just ballistic, like he goes through the time barrier and space and time, and then he's just very calm as he walks along, and everything is moving in slow motion. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
So that was a really fun film.
Yeah. For sure.
But and then you've worked on other things. Of course, you worked on the Bee Movie and all all the Kung Fu Pandas except maybe one. Two of them?
I worked on, 1 and 2. I worked on How to Train Your Dragon, just the first one. And then Croods was the last film that I did for DreamWorks. And then I moved into Frozen. I went back to Disney for Frozen.
Okay.
And
did you get to animate that, or what did you do with that?
That I just I helped on the last 6 months of that production, and just animating whatever scenes. I didn't do anything particularly shining or noteworthy. But yeah, so I animated on that for 6 weeks. And then after that, I got the fun challenge of working in live action. I worked on the television show The Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow for 2 seasons.
Oh, wow.
So that was something I had never done in my whole career, actually working with live action plates and learning how that whole end of the animation business works, and got to meet a whole super group of people working at Encore. And it's funny, my husband actually is still working on The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, but he's on the production end and I was on the post end. So that was kind of neat that we were both working on the same project, but not in the same building or the same capacity. But that was really kind of interesting to have to work with live action, and sometimes it would work out, sometimes it wouldn't. I mean, it's, you kind of are stuck with whatever live action was shot. So, like, I'd have footage of Supergirl landing, but the actress isn't really acting the way I would act to go into the animation of the landing part. But there are other scenes that worked out really well. But anyway, I shouldn't nitpick about it. It was a real fun challenge. And, they were crazy fast. And it was funny, like the rigs would be still in the process of being worked on while we were animating. That was hard to get used to because of just having the luxury of working on feature films as like Disney and DreamWorks, where there's so much development time, and they get to do a lot of rig testing and all that. And then going to a show where it's like, okay, we're still working on the face, so don't animate any of the face. And or the rigs are breaking, you have to fix stuff or constantly update the rig. And so I'm amazed at what we were able to accomplish. And there's some really great animators over at Encore and other visual artists as well. So they do a pretty good job putting it together.
Wow. So that's all for TV. So you went from feature films into TV with that.
Yeah.
And now you're actually working on The Simpsons. Yeah. So you're not an animator, but you're called a character...
Well, I'm called character layout, which I understand The Simpsons, they do a lot more than other 2D films, animation films. So we do a lot more than just 1 or 2 poses per scene. We actually put quite a bit of animation into it. And so I feel really lucky. And Mark Kirkland, a director who's been with The Simpsons for years and years, he's the one who, asked me, hey, what do you think about working at The Simpsons? And so I was like, wow, doing hand-drawn animation again, that would be really interesting to do that again. I kind of thought once I retrained in CG, that was the end of my 2D experience. And here I got a great opportunity to work in The Simpsons, and boy, do I love it. It is so much fun. People there are really cool, amazing artists. I'm just really feel honored to work with all these great 2D artists there. The backgrounds, the direction, great directors there, character designs, and the stories. It's just so much fun to work on silly, fun stuff. So I'm just having a blast doing drawing again.
Okay. So I just want to find out. So you mentioned you went from 2D to a 3D, and now you're back kind of to 2D-ish, I guess. And I just want to know, there was a time when everyone was doing, traditional 2D, and then suddenly the computer came in. How were you and how did you adapt to that? It sounds like you did pretty good. Do you have any memories of that, like
Well,
learning the computer?
yeah, I guess I was on Spirited Cimarron, and I didn't even realize at first that we were even doing some CG on that. They had a CG horse running around that you could put into different scenes, and that's when I first realized, oh my God, they can do this. I better start paying attention. And so I started dabbling a little bit in Maya, and then Dreamworks, when they decided after Sinbad, no more 2D, we're going to do only CG. They put us in the training program, and my experience, it was really scary for me because I couldn't even work a cell phone at that time. So it was pretty much a dummy when it comes to technical stuff. And my husband, who adapted to the computer really well, he actually was trying to get me into it a lot earlier, but I kept going, no, I'm just going to keep drawing. But I realized I have to learn this stuff. And so it was kind of challenging because it's also such a different frame of mind doing CG from 2D. 3D, I feel like I'm more of a puppeteer and not so much an artist. I mean, you've got the acting in your head and composition and timing and all that, but you're not drawing. So I felt like, oh, this is so different because I'm just clicking all day. Click, 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 click. I'm not feeling the drawings. So it's a whole different thing, and it was tough. I mean, I made it through, and I did it for many years, but I prefer 2D. Now being back to 2D, it's like, 2D is more fun, and it's personal, and well, it's a little less stressful, that's for sure. You don't have, stuff crashing on you or, technical problems that much. It's pretty much, well, I don't draw on paper anymore. So I am drawing, but it's on a Cintiq now, and that has its own list of challenges, but it's so much simpler, and just, I feel like I'm creating art again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, for the animation students out there, do you have any advice for them? Any words of wisdom, I guess?
I would say you guys are really lucky that there are so many opportunities for learning on the internet and forums like the CTN Expo that I just think if you just really take advantage of learning all you can, I've really feel like I've reached an age where I want to learn more now as well. I do a lot of sculptures in the computer now. I never much was into color, so now I've been taking a lot of classes, learning online and in other classes like studio arts about how to do different things with my art, concept design, and I think that's really the thing that you guys should do is just take advantage of learning as much as you can. You got so many different sources online, and there's so many schools now. And Woodbury's a pretty cool school, and you just I would say that, and also I would kind of try to explore around a little bit. Don't just do only one thing. Because you never know what you're going to be, where your strength is going to lie. I mean, if you like only drawing animation, you may find out you're pretty good at layout or lighting or something, depending if you're doing CG or 2D. I would learn different things. And then also that helps if you are employed only temporarily. You might be able to pick up a story gig at one studio. Oh, and now I could pick up an animation gig at another. But, also with that, you can't spread yourself too thin. I mean, you do have to kind of find out where your strengths are, and make sure you're good at that. But I think learning multiple type of jobs in the animation industry would be good.
And do studios still look at like animation reels or websites for students that are trying to get into the industry?
Yeah. for sure.
Yeah.
Like, even when I went back to Disney for Frozen, I still had to submit a portfolio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, online.
All
It
that
was
time.
all that time. Yeah. And so, you know, so I got to see that process because I was very fortunate in my job path that I was at Disney for 15 years and I was at Dreamworks for 17. And that wasn't after and then Frozen was like the first picture that I had to actually submit a portfolio to. So that was kind of, it was kind of funny.
You are Kathy
Yeah, Kathy,
Zalin.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't have you on my list here.
But yeah, that was a first experience I had to do with that.
Yeah.
And so definitely, I'm sure Simpsons looks at reels and portfolios as well. So.
Okay. You have any questions for her?
Out of all of the villains that you've animated, which one is your favorite?
Oh God.
I know, tough question.
That is tough. Well, it has to be Frollo. But I don't know. It's almost like a three-way tie. Frollo, Ursula, and Hexus. I love all three of those villains.
Okay.
Frollo, I got, such an amazing opportunity. And he has such a cool outfit. Especially the hat.
There it is.
But Ursula, man, she was awesome too. I love sexy, vampish, evil women. I relate to villains for some strange reason. It's kind of disturbing, especially with Frollo. It's like, I getting that character, I just totally go, I know him. I know. Maybe it's I've had some bad experience in my memory. I don't know. But he's so with the times right now too, with sexual harassment and all that. He should have lost his job as judge. Good Judge Claude Frollo should have been fired. So I don't know. It's almost a three-way tie, but I love all those villains.
They were amazingly done. I remember watching them as a kid. So Hexus and Frollo used to terrify me. So yes, you guys did an amazing job.
Oh, great. Well, my crew is really amazing, especially on Frollo. Hard to name everybody, but Adam Dykstra's one. He actually sits next to me at The Simpsons, and he's an amazing animator. And but anyway, yeah, I feel lucky that I had such a great crew, and half of it actually was in Paris.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I had like eight, maybe 6 animators here, maybe 6 animators over there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really challenging because I would have to communicate with them and check their drawings. And of course, they're 8 hours ahead. And so that was really challenging to write all these notes up and send drawings back to them. And so that was pretty cool. And I got to actually go to Paris, and I got to go to Notre Dame and see that during the making of Hunchback. And that was really cool, walking, where in Notre Dame and thinking about him in those places. It was pretty fantastic and inspiring. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, really cool. Yeah, I actually went to France last year and went to Notre Dame again, and I just sat there reliving the Hunchback of Notre Dame, my experience, and thinking back and looking at the place, and good memories. That was a good crew.
Oh, that's great. Well, I want to thank you again, for coming on here and telling us all about your life and animation, and anything else we want to kind of.
I think that's it.
It's pretty good. I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
We can't talk about The Simpsons though, because
No.
that's Pop's secret right now. But but are you planning to go to CTN this year or anything like that?
I usually go every year.
Yeah.
So yeah, CTN's really fun, and I love. It's kind of like a big reunion party. Get to see a lot of friends, past coworkers. And it's Tina Price does an amazing job of putting that whole thing together.
Oh, yeah.
And students are so lucky. Man, I wish I had that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But my hat's off to her for doing such an amazing job.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to end it here, I guess. Again, I want to thank Kathy Zielinski. You just heard about all her stuff that she's been doing. And there she is, clapping away, yes. Let me see if we can... Anyway, if you want to subscribe to the Animateducated website on, yes, right there on YouTube. You should do that because I've jumped from like 31 to 46 or something subscribers.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just need like 1 million more, and then I don't know, I get paid $1 or something. I don't know how that works. I haven't even got there yet. But anyway, I want to thank you for coming in, and anything else happening that you can talk about, or anything? Words of ending, or
just
want to block you there?
I don't know. I think I've pretty much said it all. Just thank you for having me, and it's been a real pleasure, and it's fun, and I hope this inspires other generations of animators.
Okay, so next week we're going to have a live streaming on Wednesday, I believe at 9 a.m., and of course nobody will show up. Unless you're on the East Coast, then it'll be about 11 or 12. But we're going to have the writer and author of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and he'll be on here, he won't be here, but he'll be on the radio, on the phone, and we'll do a live interview with him. And this show that you're listening to now will be broadcast on the 12th. So it'll be Lincoln's birthday and Charles Darwin's birthday. Yeah. They were both born the same year. Ooh. So I got that from Tom Cito. So anyway, so thanks again for coming in, and so thank you.